I like it. Also, our show is so literary. I like that there's always like books stacked.
Well, this is very much like, it's either like, oh, he reads a lot of books, or like, he really can't afford a bookshelf.
I always like books stacked up like that.
I love books stacked up like that. I think it's so good.
It makes more sense.
But so what is your history with the Cervantes Institute?
So I have been collaborating with the Cervantes Institute for almost 2 years now. I started off working under the cultural curator as her assistant, and I learned a lot of about the duties of an arts administrator, such as marketing and hold on, can I start again? All right.
So chronologically, where did you first hear about Instituto Cervantes? Instituto Cervantes.
Oh, Instituto Cervantes, yes. In college, I enjoyed going to the Instituto Cervantes because as a Hispanic, and as an art lover, I really loved going to Hispanic cultural events, and that is basically the niche that the Instituto Cervantes serves. So for many years, I would go to a lot of events that they held, especially their flamenco festival. When I graduated from college, I was very interested in the field of arts administration, so I worked as an assistant under the cultural curator for a while. And while there, I helped with a lot of their festivals, such as the Flamenco Festival, their Caravan Music Festival, their World Book Day Festival. And after I told them about my interest in zarzuela and Spanish music, they invited me to bring my 2014 production of the zarzuela La Dolorosa to the Cervantes Institute for a show. That went over very, very well, which led them to inviting me in the spring of 2015 to put on a special concert honoring Cervantes and their World Book Day Festival. This summer, they will also be hosting the Shadow Stories and Songs double bill show as well.
So a lot of these project ideas that you've had has really been shaped by your experience working with them.
Definitely.
It's a very cohesive experience, or you know what I'm trying to say, working environment.
Definitely. The Cervantes Institute has been a wonderful resource for understanding more about Spanish culture and Latin American culture. They have a wonderful library which has a lot of information about zarzuela and as books as well as cassettes, which you won't ever find anywhere else. So that was a very big resource for me when I was researching into the art form of zarzuela and how to produce it and what needs to be done in order to make it what it should be.
Yeah, because that's another thing that we've mentioned kind of in passing as we've been talking about putting on this production is how hard it is to get these scores. Like, talk a little bit about your experience with that, because you've done quite a bit of it now, right?
Yes, it is difficult to get zarzuela scores here in the U.S. For me, it's much easier for me to actually get scores because I am a Spanish speaker, so I'm able to contact the Sociedad General de Autores y Editores, which is the publishing group in Spain that has the rights to all of these zarzuelas. So I'm able to contact them and they're able to get me all the materials that I need. And there are certain schools here in the US that also have certain scores, but it is difficult actually finding those scores and the librettos particularly.
How about rehearsal process with these kinds of projects? Like, how much are you normally involved, and how much of the time are there people that may not be as fluent in the language, or where are the things that go well and where are the things that are kind of challenges with those kinds of projects?
Right. I would say definitely producing a zarzuela in the United States has its own challenges than if you were to produce it, for example, in Spain or in Latin America or another Spanish-speaking country. Because here in the U.S., there are Latino musicians and vocalists, but not as much as one would want in a zarzuela. Required to put a zarzuela on. So it really becomes a balance between keeping the original language of the score, or opening it up to English speakers and translating it into English, and perhaps losing some of the original meaning of the work. I think I think the fact that it's Spanish, it's in the Spanish language, is very special.
Yeah.
Because we do have a very large Spanish-speaking population here in the U.S. And I feel it'd be great to keep the work in its original state, but it's also kind of, you have to balance between the fact that there is definitely a dearth of Latino artists that can perform the work, or artists who are fluent in the Spanish language, and making sure that it's performed as it should be.
Do you have any more questions for her? As we're playing Journos.
Yeah. Tell us about this, the puppet show.
Right. So Manuel de Falla wrote a puppet opera in the 1920s, and he was fascinated with puppets as a child, and he came up with the idea of combining opera and puppetry. So he based this particular puppet opera off of an episode of Don Quixote de la Mancha, in which Don Quixote goes to an inn and sits down to watch a puppet show based on the legend of Don Gaiferos and Melisandre. The story of Don Gaiferos and Melisandre ends with them trying to escape from Moorish knights, and Don Quixote, of course, being him, ends up blurring the lines of fiction and reality, and stands up with his sword and tries to save the fleeing couple, and starts destroying the entire puppet set, to the dismay of the puppeteer. And so that's basically how it ends. It's a short work of 27 minutes, but it's a great reflection. It's a great piece representative of Manuel de Falla's neoclassical style, and also a very charming work representative of Cervantes' own masterpiece, Don Quixote.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about the uniqueness of the job of the singers, that it is kind of a semi-concert. How would you describe it?
For our first act, we will be putting on El Huésped Sevillano by Jacinto Guerrero, which is probably one of the most widely regarded zarzuelas in the canon. It is an interesting work in the sense that it's a tale within a tale. In it, we have the character of Miguel de Cervantes observing the happenings of the story and commenting on them, and writing it into his new novel, which is the story that the zarzuela is based off of, called La Ilustre Fregona, the noble kitchen maid. And for this particular performance of El Huésped de Sevillano, we decided to condense the story and adapt it into a concert version, but with a narrator filling in the plot of the show in order for it to match more with the second act, which is the puppet show.
Tell us about the company or the person you have that's going to be putting on the puppet show.
Right, so our director for the Retablo de Maese Pedro, her name is Myra Sue, and she is a well-known young puppet theater artist in the Chicago area. Her specialty is shadow theater, and the medium of shadow theater can be done in many ways. The way that she implements it is through overhead projection, and it's actually a very interesting effect that it creates. So her concept for the puppet show will be is to have layers, with the overhead projection being the layer of scenery and props, and the performers using large headpieces being life-size puppets. So the scenery will be projected onto a very large shadow theater screen, and the performers will be within that world. So it'll be a very interesting layering of different forms of shadow.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. Do you? I mean,
Because I have